Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the beautiful... Oh, I've just lost you, Raeline. Guys, we're having a few technical issues, so hopefully Raeline will come back on soon. But we thought we'd get started anyway, and we've got an enchanting chat for everyone today about Lemuria. And who doesn't feel the excitement of when we activate our Lemurian codes? There you are, darling, you're back. We're asking all tech gremlins to get out of our space so we can do our thing today. I'll let you say hello to everyone. Hopefully you can hear me, right?
Hi, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I can hear you, Carrie. And thank you so much for joining us wherever you are in the world. We've got a very, doozy of a show today. So, there's no coincidences. Stuff's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's part of the course.
That's it. And it's really the perfect time for Raeline to be here today. If we can keep her on the screen, as I say, we've got some techie issues going on. So all the Reiki practitioners out there, just send us some Reiki in, and I'm sure we can bolster up this connection. But yeah, it really is a perfect time. The last time we spoke, it was such an enchanting chat, and I know today will be exactly the same. We all have a little bit of PTSD around the time of Lemuria, Atlantis. We can't say specifically from our logical self what went on at those times, but we all dream about it. We all have the imaginative process that helps us to recall and remember, or as you always break that word down, remember. We're remembering, we're putting back together the aspects of self. So we're carrying a lot of grief and a lot of that cataclysmic type trauma within us. And of course, what we find ourselves in at the moment, particularly in Australia, and we'll have people listening from all over the world, so you'll be able to reflect on these same energies that are going on wherever you find yourself on the beautiful earth plane at this time. But there is this sense of, are we heading for another apocalypse? Are we already in another apocalypse? What does apocalypse mean? Is this the end of the civilization?
But absolutely.
Take it away, darling, if you can hear.
This is a very special time, and we are clearing out the last of the membrane of the cells, the cellular memory. So I've lost the sound and the vision as well, which is really interesting.
Keep going if you can, Raeline. I'm not sure if you know oh, what a shame we're losing her today. I know there's so many people on here watching already all over the world. Let's just keep praying that this connection will pick up. But feel free in the meantime, you can send me some questions in. What I find, and most people I'm sure will relate to this, is that I periodically have big wave dreams. And for me, I know it's a Lemurian connection for me more so than an Atlantean connection. And I know that when I have those big wave dreams, it's a real feeling of we failed. Our egos got the better of us. We weren't able to overcome that opportunity we had for ascension. Now, you can look at it in the astrological wheels, and you can look at it the epochs of time, maybe, and obviously on a higher dimensional sense, we weren't meant to ascend at that time. We still had more to learn, but we still carry those codes within us of grief that we failed our civilization, that we really had to sink ourselves. And whether you see that as a physical experience or more a metaphysical experience. It really doesn't matter. We had this feeling that we had to sink ourselves and we had to rebuild from scratch, so to speak, and that many people went into Middle Earth and then they were the last ones standing when that apocalyptic time ended and came back out and rebuilt from scratch. And maybe these cycles have gone on for millennia, and of course that they have, but what is it in us that's reawakening at this time, and how can we harness that energy and this time rise into the golden age and into that ascension pathway that's available to us? How you going, Raeline? Can you hear me? Yeah, so Ben, amazing that you can, the wave is always really high and black and a sinking feeling. Yeah, I absolutely agree. It's the feeling, and that's really who we are as frequency beings, as energy beings. Whilst this 3D reality seems real, and of course we cut ourselves, we bleed, we stub our toe, it hurts, there is a sense of it being real to some degree, but because life is always in flux in this third dimensional reality, there is a sense that it's not real. We can never be stuck or held or trapped in any certain experience in our life. There's always this opportunity to reawaken in every now moment. And so we regard what's happening out there with the 3D eyes as really a hologram, a holographic reality. And so we lighten ourselves up a lot because we can certainly through the emotional layers, and that's something that's unique to humans, is to have this feeling emotional self. We can, thanks for sending Reiki. I'm seeing all your comments coming in, guys. We have this sense that, I feel I'm human, but my feeling ultimately is a gift from the Creator to love and to be loved. And if we can really come back to that place and observe all these other emotions, energy and motion, as they run through us like waves, really, electromagnetic waves that we're a part of in this cosmic reality, how can we just be with those waves as they rise up and they crash down? There's our code for Lemuria. And how can we ride the waves but not be sucked into the undertow? And I guess this is where we're at, to use the analogy of what happened in Lemuria as we sunk ourselves. How can we use that analogy this time to continue to rise up through that wave motion? And it's a golden opportunity for us all. Really? They don't like it.
Hopefully I'll stay now. I just moved the router to this room. They're doing upgrades to the internet in this area. I know that. So,
100% better. And everyone's sending energy, so it all helps.
Okay, great. I just thought I'm going to move the modem to this actual room because it's in another part of the house, way down the back. So I just moved.
It's perfect now.
Yeah, good. Okay, we're here. So
darling, I was riffing on about, the sinking codes, getting caught in the emotional undertow, these aspects of Lemuria, Atlantis, these codes, these cataclysmic doomsday feelings that we maybe haven't risen above. Can you speak to that? What's happening for us? Because for those who don't know Raeline, she is a galactivator, so she'll go galactic realms, but she is also a grid worker, so she pulls it deep down into the crystalline grid of Mother Earth. And Raeline herself will go around, she's called to go around to sacred sites and to anchor codes. So really powerful work that you do. If you don't follow Raeline already, on her Facebook page, there's links there. It's an absolute must because she will bring in key codes at certain times for you, even if you don't understand them with your logical mind. She will bring it in a way that will activate these codes so that you can continue to rise, so that we don't have to be caught in the undertow this time. So, darling, tell us what's happening at this time on Earth, and in particular Australia, and how that relates to Lemuria.
Okay, big question. 3-part question. But yeah, it's really thick and fast. Our cellular memory is that. It's holding memory. So the catastrophophobia, fear of, catastrophe, earthquakes, inundations, tsunamis are a big one. All this is really full on. Hi, Jane. And it is all coming up for clearing now. It's all coming up, okay? And the point is that our dear galactic Gaia has done this, and because we're made up of the same elements, it's only natural that we're coming up for, we're coming along for the ride. So if her elemental makeup, her molecular structure is shifting and changing, then our energetics in our elemental makeup are also coming along for the ride. But we have this free will, we have this resistance, we have this false ego, we have this faulty intelligence, and we have this mind. So all these components that are meant to actually work with the soul coding, work with our source coding, have been running rampant for quite some time. So full accountability here in that if the shit show is on rerun, that we have to take accountable that, there's a part of what I call the beloved affliction where we're still getting benefit from, getting off on the dramas or whatever it is that hooks us in. Now, interesting, it is the cellular membrane that is being cleared at the moment, and this is very precious because that cellular membrane of our DNA is currently under, attack. And so we have to see that our source coding is being under attack. However, in the illusory play, that may appear to be a reality, but nothing is set in stone here. We perceive Genesis as a one-off event. However, outside of linear time, duality, reality, polarity, pull, Genesis is perpetually occurring. And this is where, as eternal light beings, we are the masters of time, and we are able to interface with the dimensional overlays of time that we are wired to throughout lifetimes. Now, as an eternal light being, we talk about lifetimes, but it's just us interfacing through cycles of the capacity of knowing ourselves through expanded consciousness, through spherical consciousness. And so this is our grand opportunity to get to know ourselves in all our glory, in, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful, all of it. And, what's happening now is we've got amazing shadow mirroring going on. We've got amazing opportunities to, polish the mirror and get that mirror finish. Can you?
Such powerful times, Raeline. You're still hearing me, okay? Because we're hearing you perfectly now.
Perfectly clear. Perfectly clear.
Just segue. A couple of questions have come in about the Glasshouse Mountains, and do you have any? I'll just go back to this. Yeah, Ben has asked, interested for you to talk about the Glasshouse Mountains, and then another question from a beautiful lady in New Zealand asking, is that an extra special place? Is there a portal there? Is there something that you know about?
Well, funny you ask. Thank you. I have done some work. They're very powerful work on top of a mountain in the Glasshouse Mountains. And I was asked to strip naked and make an essence on top of that mountain. And there was one little tree, a mango tree of all things. And that's where I had to sit. And it was on the edge of this cliff of the mountain. Now, it just so happened that essence ended up being a part of a system of 12 high points on our planet, 12 mountains, which then had to be activated after 4 years of traveling the world, gathering, and they weren't the mountains I wanted them to be. I wanted them to be Mount Warning, Wollumban. I wanted them to be all these, my favorite mountains, but they weren't. They were very, very specific. And they were about the high points. And if anybody knows about the mythology of the Glasshouse Mountains, it's a crook neck. So, it is about an inundation that's coming from the ocean. And I won't go into the full mythology, but let's just say a tidal wave's coming, the sun doesn't act accordingly to save siblings and mother, and there's a harsh punishment from the father. But yes, embedded in that mountain is incredible codes around catastrophophobia, inundation, where, we are given opportunities. I've had a lot of tsunami dreams along that coastline of the, Pacific Ocean, where I've seen tidal waves in dreams and actually on the Gold Coast in reality at night sitting on the beach, and I just saw this huge wall of water coming towards me out of my peripheral vision. Same in places I've gone to that are deserts that for me are, whenever I go to deserts, I always feel ocean. So, a really powerful place for that for me is any Pueblo, rock-dwelling places like in Arizona and places like that. I always feel that and have reintegrated a lifetime of experiencing an inundation coming and holding the frequency of that wave as it engulfed people I was with.
What's coming through for me, Raeline, is that because emotion governs the element of water, this represents the engulfing of our emotional self. And so we're at that same precipice, for want of a better word, using the codes of the mountain and the water elements. We're at that precipice again. How can we overcome that feeling of being engulfed by our own emotional body so that those waves don't take us out again? And someone commented before and said, they're experiencing that doomsday energy that I was referencing. I don't know whether you heard me before you came back in, that this is what's cycling around the planet at the moment. And so it can really catch us and take us down. And therefore we may be rendered powerless, that there's nothing that we can do because we're playing that small I self still. We've had these slave oaths that we've made with the Anunnaki. We're wanting now to say, I break all oaths. I'm taking my power back. I'm not having that anymore. So this rising from small I to the I am presence. I want to harness my emotions. I don't want to suppress my emotions, because within my emotional body is that beautiful golden code of being here to love and to be loved. How then can I hold that space but not let these other emotions engulf me? So what's your wisdom for us all at this time?
Well, there's 3 points I'd like to speak to in relation to that. But I guess to tie it all in, I would like to say that once those 12 mountain essences were created, I had to go on the first Venus transit we'd had in any human lifetime, 2004, to Uluru to activate it all. So this was one of the source codes. The inland sea at Uluru is the orchestra pit of the whales and dolphins. So this is a big place where the catastrophophobia and the, let's just say, stellar brethren who have gone rogue have really interfered with the oceanic grids. So I would like to speak to that. The importance of Uluru isn't just about the land and Indigenous culture. We also, and absolute respect to the culture for holding that down, anchoring it in a human form. No small feat. The whales and dolphins have been, since the last great inundation, holding what I call the dolphin dreaming temples and the starry whale palaces, which are our birthing gates, our stellar birthing gates for anchoring and alchemizing the fullness of who we are and what we're bringing and our gifts from the stars. Now, we are 80% water. Okay, our planet's 80% water. The oceans of our planet are governed by and regulated by an ocean within our planet. We have one great ocean. Now, originally there was one great ocean in Lemuria. When the plate tectonics shifted, these became separate oceans and new currents formed. Now, between our poles are shifting towards Russia and shifting towards Madagascar, the Indian Ocean, from Antarctica. Now, this is not by coincidence. These currents are regulated from the ocean inside our ocean. Now, there's a beautiful Maori mythology about Tani Mahuta, the kauri tree, who got his skin very similar to his brother, the whale. And Tani Mahuta connects with the sky and our inner earth. And he is connected to the whales and the inner ocean of our earth. And if you want to read up about that, it's the most beautiful connection of how nothing is separate. Now, the whales and the dolphins work with our unconscious mind, and the collective unconscious mind is rising to the surface. It's resurfacing now. So with that resurfacing is all these memories from our cellular memory. Now, the whales and the dolphins say, come down with us. It's deep, it's dark, it's unexplored territory. So it's what I call our oceanic underworld initiations. Now, these are very powerful. And if you're here on the earth walk and you are an awakened being, this is one of your rites of passage. And this is what's occurring now, because there are so many people on the planet, so many beings awakening, and with that means getting to know your all, who you are in all dimensional overlays simultaneously, if you can pull that off. But here is where we're headed. Here is where we're headed. This is not a stepping stone or a going in a linear sense up and down. This is spherical consciousness, as I mentioned. And so part of understanding that we don't just bring it to the surface earth, we bring it into the core center of our planet. And it's deep, it's dark, it's unexplored territory. We don't know what's down there. But the whales and the dolphins say, come with us. That's our natural territory. And in fact, that's yours. As you're in the womb of your mother, you're in that embryonic fluid. You know it's not fearful to be in water. It is who you are. Your body is predominantly water. Your earth planet is predominantly water. You spend that whole time of gestation in fluidity. And this is the most powerful thing that we have forgotten and are remembering. Because within that source code of water and fluidity is all the information that we need to do what we've come to do this time round. So this is the importance of whales and dolphins. And as Uluru is the orchestra pit, Tefnut, the great white lion mother, known as the Sphinx, a Greek word, not an Egyptian word. And Tefnut is the spit, the spittle. She's created out of spit. And she is the moisture. She is what gives birth to moisture from the primordial waters of oceanic consciousness. So she is the conductor, both when we talk about frequency conducting or electromagnetic conducting. She is the conductor and the sound frequency. There are 12 sound pillars around our planet that are awakening now. And we call these Lemurian Heart portals, and they're pillars. They're pillars of sound frequencies that are really activating around the planet. And recently I was called to the Whitsundays and to work with the Great Barrier Reef, and also to work with the silica sand in that region, which is the purest silica sand on our planet. And every year the whales go with their calves to birth and to also to have vacation in Fraser Island, which is the largest silica island in the world. So here we have the silicate matrix of our planet really, really singing the codes anew. And the whales and the dolphins are transmuting those codes to us in a way that we can assimilate and absorb without frying out our wiring. We've got the Schumann resonance that is spiking so high now, and we only get what we are ready for, no more, no less. And what's happening through the solar plasma that's hitting the scalar waves and the solar plasma that's hitting our ionosphere, which is plasmic. Our whole ionosphere is plasma. So this is like a micro transduction in a way that we can switch on our responders, that we can transmit and receive these amazing codes. So I don't know if you're still there, but if you can hear me, please just write a message in the box and in the comments, and
I could hear you. You've frozen a little bit, Raeline. Yeah, it's absolutely enchanting. And what I'm feeling as you're saying all of this is that we are so determined not to go into those watery depths of ourselves that will do anything to distract ourselves. And yet that's exactly the place that we need to go. And to know that the whales and the dolphins are there supporting us as we go into those what may appear to be murky places, very quickly open up with our trust and our faith in them guiding and leading us, that we are taken actually on a magical adventure. And sound seems to be such a theme at the moment. We know that sound is one of the most potent energies, healing modalities available for us. So many people are investigating sound more. We see how somatics works when you create sound vibration over, and it's interesting you mentioned sand, but that's how they usually show somatics. They'll do it over grains of sand, and it forms these perfect geometrical patterns. So we know that those codes from above, let's say, from dimensions above us, from galactic realms, are coming down, but it's always all dimensions working together as one. We can't separate them because it's creating our 3D holographic reality here for us to have this adventure and this wonderland, should we choose it to be that way. And of course there's I love how you say the stellar brethren who've gone rogue. It's such a beautiful way to say it, because they're playing their part for us. If we didn't have that ultimate opponent, we wouldn't cause ourselves to come into great activation and then ultimately gull activation. So everything's perfect and everything is poised for us actually to, continue to rise and to move into this ascension pathway. But it's got to be an internal choice, because something that we do have as human beings is free will. As you always say, we're on a free will planet. So how are we going to exercise that free will? who are we allowing to run this great and grand adventure for us? Well, of course, sovereignty is about choosing to be that initiator of the grand adventure, not allowing someone to dictate the terms for you. So, yeah, it's just enchanting, though, hearing about the whales and the dolphins. Just yesterday, actually, when we were messaging, someone sent me a video. It's funny how it always aligns and synchronizes and comes in. Someone sent me a video not only of a Lemurian rainbow that had formed, but then someone sent me a video of a whale that had just been rescued. It had a rope going through its mouth, and these beautiful divers had got into the water with this huge whale, knowing that one flick of the tail could have eradicated them, but they thought, no, we're going in, managed to cut the rope out of the whale's mouth, and the whale came up and nudged them all, looked deep into their eyes and nudged them all and said thank you, and did a few laps of, excitement, and then swam off. So there's so many ways that they're communing with us, isn't there? It's incredible.
They are, and as I was saying, the ionosphere is plasmic, and the whales and dolphins are disseminating the codes through hydroplasma in our oceans. So, for me, this last Lionsgate is all about, we've gone, the light frequencies in our body and the photonic light that's hitting our planet is just incredible right now. And, I don't know why I've got a brain freeze on, when you get the plant photons in the water and they light up in the dark. What's it called? In the ocean.
Yes, yeah. Well, the coral and all of these, these systems.
Bioluminescent, since I was told that we've now gone bioluminescent.
Right.
We have now got our bioluminescence fired up in our cells. Now, the cells are now singing. This is why it's so important to sing and to listen to whale song. Yes, thank you, bioluminescence.
Thanks, Sunshine. Thank you, Sunshine.
So, yes, our bioluminescence has now switched on. And, the 12 pillars that I was talking around, the Lemurian Heart portals that have now reactivated, they're in the ocean. The first one I worked with ever and was made conscious of was in Bali. And I had to dive down underneath in a coral cave. It was red coral. And I took my little crystal skull George with me, and I didn't know his name at the time, but he said, "You've never asked me my name." And I said, "Well, what's your name?" And he said, "George," and I started laughing, and he said, "Well, look it up." And in the ancient Greek, Euros means earth worker. So he was down there with me, but that was to work with this Lemurian Heart portal that it was opening up in Bali, in a cave, scuba diving 100 feet down when the tsunami was happening at that time, like that moment when the tsunami was hitting. I got to ground and my phone was just dinging, 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 get to higher ground, get to higher ground. So it was interesting that, there was messages from the government, all sorts of stuff on the mobile, Australians in Bali, get to higher ground. My whole family were contacting me. Nothing happened. Not like, what happened with, the tsunami in Thailand and so forth. But these are ways, and there are a lot of souls that sign up for this particular experiences too. And
and can we talk about that, Raeline? The volunteers that have come to be on Earth at this time to effectively have the front row seats, and of course, that's a challenging mission, but something that we probably pushed others out of the way to get here. And then we came here and we realised the frequency is quite dense as compared to higher dimensions. And so then we're really having to grapple with what that means, what this human lifetime means, is even as a starseed. But who are these volunteers that have come, and what could you say to them at this time to help them continue on with that galactic mission that they're on?
Well, the thing is, you can't do the work. All these, as you say, beings, other dimensional beings, they can't do the work the way that we can. So in a sense, this is where walk-ins come in, and this is where, the demigods are lining up to take birth right now. They're queuing up to get here, because this is the place where the extremes are so intensified. I've said it before, in the heavenly planets, they're enjoying so much that they forget who they am. What is my connection to the divine? How can I work in accord with the divine? They're off enjoying, and in the underworld, it's just, in the demonic realms or the Patala realms, there's no consciousness to inquire after, who am I? What am I doing here? What's my connection with Source? And so we're strategically and perfectly situated right now. And the roller coaster ride is intensified. Who are these beings? A lot of these beings have had enough of enjoying, because we have to understand that these heavenly realms, they're still angels and demons, and the Devatas and the Asuras, the demonics. They're still playing out their pastimes in these realms. This is not spiritual. These are not spiritual realms. These are subtle material realms. And so it's not that when you're in those realms that you don't experience these things. There's incredible pastimes in the Vedas about, these in great detail of the pastimes of, the Devas and the Asuras. And they're incredible teaching tools for us. But we also have to understand that some of these guys are really exalted beings. And I know there's a beautiful story where there was a boy king called Dhruva Maharaj, and he insulted the four Kumaras at the gates of Vaikuntha, the gates to the spiritual realms. And he had to go through the process of, accepting, the repercussions of that. And so he was given his own planet called Dhruvaloka. He was ready. He was exalted, ready to go back to the spiritual reality, and he insulted these four Kumaras, and so he got Dhruvaloka, which is now our pole star. Now we know the pole star is holding incredible information, and we can see that the pole star, in relation to Egypt and places like Angkor has been very, very powerful in the information that's being brought through and assimilated. There's also, tied in with that story, exalted beings who have made mistakes just before attaining spiritual consciousness, or have come from those realms to teach. And there's another story where they are given an opportunity to get back quicker by assuming the forms and taking the consciousness of demons and playing out those roles to get back quicker. In fact, a lot of them will accept those roles to get back quicker if they've it's a very, very intricate and very tricky to see who's who in the cosmic zoo and who's playing out what role. And we never quite know who is who and who is playing the role, but is an exalted being. So this is very, very interesting and very complex when we go into the nitty-gritty of it all as well. So
said that, Raeline, because it has to be said, because they're taking on that role as an activator for humans. If humans didn't have, in the realm of polarity, if they didn't have those evil forces, if they didn't have those demonic forces, then they'd just be waltzing about the planet, having a great holiday, but not on their own hero's journey, not activating themselves for greatness. And so, yeah, fascinating. And I completely understand. I'm sure the people listening completely understand what you're saying, that those exalted beings actually, for their own consciousness journey, may choose to play the demon, because we really are in a realm of dress-ups. And so the paradox is that we can rise above it and see it all as this great galactic story, but then other times we are again sucked into the undertow and it seems so real, and we're tempted then to play the victim and to again render ourselves powerless, which then invites in the savior template that, oh, we must be saved. We'll listen to someone else, and we'll follow someone else into probably a place that means our own demise. So it is always about storytelling, isn't it? It is seeing it from that perspective.
Absolutely. The power of mythos and metaphor and these incredible stories. And we really have entered that stage now where people are starting to join in or be aware of exopolitical and exobiological plays that are being enacted as we speak right now. And we live in incredibly interesting times. And, it is through this play that we get to self-actualize. Because without self-actualization, there can be no self-realization. The role of God, whatever you want to call that being, that source, creator being, whatever you want to call it, is indifferent. And it's not like we're not going to be forced. Unconditional means unconditional. And so that indifference is, go play, my children, go play in my fields of illusory realities. Go play, get to know yourself. Get to know yourself in all your facets, in all your wondrous glory. As I said, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, non-different. I don't judge you. Go play. You're still my children. You're still part and parcel, the flame and the spark. And so this is where we have to get to the point where we've had enough of operating in separated consciousness. And, this is wonderful because we are unifying our fields. We are awakening our unconsciousness in order to unify our fields. And we're going into the nitty-gritty now. We're in that. We are in a state of flux. And part of that state of flux is, polishing. It's part of the polishing. I was told many, many years, about 15, 20 years ago, we're going to enter a stage which is called frenetic timing. And in that time, it's going to be really, really full on. And, there's a place for everyone on this planet. And we have a subscope on this planet. So if people still want to enact certain activities and engage in certain behaviors, then there's a place for everyone on this planet. But the predominant frequency and the predominant consciousness is unity consciousness. And this is, what I call the children of the one heart race. And that is us. That is the children of the one heart race is 3 groups of because everything that has to be pulled out of duality must triumph, It must be triumphed first. So our power, our love, and our wisdom, our threefold flames, must be triumphed. So there are four color races of this principle of the law of one that unifies everything. Now, when we talk about 12, Atlantis was very much about 12. When we talk about 12, it is about the 12 councils operating as one. Now, when Atlantis fell, in the first fall of Atlantis, not the last fall, there was a pact made that if one of the temples of the crystalline grid was tampered with, then they all had to shut down. Now, in doing so meant shutting down our consciousness. So, this was a big thing to undergo and to make that pact with those groups. Now, when that happened, the four color races took the sacred knowledge, the spiritual technologies, and the bio techniques that kept us in higher frequency and consciousness. They took those for safekeeping to the four corners of the earth. Now they're returning, and they're sitting in council, what I call the Council of Council. Now, for me, star elders are us. When we fully arrive, when we've fully understood or understood who we are, what we're holding, what we're bringing from our gifts from the stars, this is the star elder. So part of the children of the One Heart race is a star elder. So these are the four color races that are coming and sharing now. We're seeing that, particularly, in this continent, in Aboriginal culture, they don't share. They don't share. It's just not done usually. However, now we're seeing that things are starting to be shared within the four color race cultures. So this means we have reached a certain frequency or a vibration. We have let go of the hold of being dictated to how things are, playing small, and we have accepted the roles of sovereigns of our planet, which is the bare minimum we need to get the show on the road.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. We are the star elders. We don't need to look anywhere else. We just continually need to dive. There's that analogy again, dive into self, into the watery depths of self, and to just be with self, just to allow those magical codes to reignite and to be taken on that mystical journey that the whales and the dolphins are there to lead us through. Raeline, as we, believe it or not, we are coming towards time. I could listen to your stories forever. But if you wouldn't mind, if you feel comfortable anyway, the last time we spoke, you were receiving information about the children in the tunnel. So we talk about, again, into the underworld. Where are we at with what's happening with the children? You can divulge as much or as little as you like, but you were saying that their plasma, their blood plasma has changed because of that photonic light that's coming in. So demons that are perpetrating these heinous acts upon children in the trafficking situations, the blood now is poisonous to these demons. If you want to elaborate or express what's where we're at with what's going on there.
Yeah, it's not palpable. So the plasma codes that we're receiving from the sun interface and are transduced through whales and dolphins, the hydroplasma, as I said, first the ionosphere, the plasma in our ionosphere, the hydroplasma in our oceans, and also interfacing with our golden plasma. So it's a macro and micro process between solar plasma and the golden blood plasma. So this is changing dramatically. I normally when I work with this, it sort of happens very suddenly that I get pulled into these realms. I actually get pulled in, and it can happen very, very suddenly, and it is quite interesting and can throw me out for some time. So this is why I didn't speak about this for a long time, because I really had to be responsible with the frequencies that I had been working with at the time, and the way it hit my emotional body. It took me a long time to integrate. But basically what happened was I was pulled in, and I was in a tunnel, and I could hear children, and they were talking to me, and they were calling me the lady, and I was being shown how I was to send whale song through the tunnels, and two beautiful brothers had been out with the whales all season and were sending me the whale song. So I was sending this through the tunnels, and the children, there are transmitters and receivers, highly, highly psychic, because their senses are so depraved from surface Earth. They have their psychic senses are through the roof. So they had been telepathically communicating with children on cargo ships in containers. Mm-hmm. And these children in the containers were telling the children in the tunnels that when they hear the whale song through the tunnels, that to know that they are not forsaken, that humankind are coming to rescue them. And so this was really quite incredible. And yeah, this was an amazing experience for me. And they were very protective of me, because there were particular beings that I won't go into, but there were particular beings that were aware of their abilities and aware that they could communicate and were these were not human beings. They were very reptilian looking and very slinky. I did have an encounter with one. But, you know, I have been very gifted to spend time with beings on this planet who understand the importance of integrating, zero pointing and true self integrating. And to when you work with yourself through true self in the underworld and within these particular realms, what I would call level 1 and level 2. Level 2 is personal underworld, where you justify and defend and prove, you know, murder, rape, anything. And then we have collective underworld, planetary underworld, which is, you know, where you do that on a greater scale, where genocides and holocausts and things of this nature. So when you work with true self and integrate these beings, they know who you are. They know that, you know, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to teach here. This is a source guided being. This is a true self in union with the divine, with their God force, with God. And so sometimes you're in it, sometimes you're not in it. I'm not saying I've perfected it, but I have been fortunate enough to be taught how to work in these realms with true self. And so it took a long time to integrate. In fact, there is no coincidence that we're having this conversation, because about 2.5 weeks ago, I had a complete breakdown to break through. I was driving my car when it occurred, yet somehow my true self and my higher self allowed me to keep driving. But I had a major, major brain snap. while driving. And part of it was triggered by personal family stuff, but it was also triggered by the collective. And it was the most incredible experience because I could hear sounds coming out of my body that I could recognize as collective trauma and personal trauma trapped in my cells. And so it is no coincidence that we're having this conversation now, because I am able to have this conversation now without, going into full shaking and stuff, with the emotional body of working with the children in the capacity of experiencing what they have been through. This is not for the faint-hearted, and it is specialised work. It is not something that's taught. It is innate, and it must be developed. As I said, self-actualization, bringing self-realization to the degree that you integrate your underworld on level 1 and level 2, personal and planetary underworld, is to the degree that we can work in this capacity, and not just on an intellectual level, and every cell of our being and our body feeling and integrating. And so that is the story to date on that one. The Silicate Matrix is really important, and as I said, the blood codes, the blood plasma, I believe convalescent plasma will be the way forward with what will arise in relation to, the story that's unfolding on our planet now, with choices over our bodies. And watch this space.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing, and for that huge purge that you personally went through. And I see you so clearly, and I thank you so much for doing that for the collective, as I know many people who are listening and watching here do that same kind of work on behalf of the collective. And as you say, it's not for the faint-hearted. I shared with you a while ago around the reptilians that I had a group of them come to me, and they were so heartbroken by what was going on with the children and how they had been used themselves to move children here or there, and they just didn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And I saw them going into an area where they were receiving healing themselves, and then they chose to go back and sacrifice themselves on behalf of the children. They knew that they were probably going to be taken out in the process, but they were on their own mission. And so it's really important that we know that within that reptilian culture, they're not all evil. A lot of them are actually, working to support and save the children as well. And for me, that's what went on those cargo ships, that there was an internal glitching that went on from their own kind. So whether people see that mythology or,
That's so true. And the Dragon Councils are really, really, they are taking, there's certain things that must play out.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that are where the line's crossed. And so, when we talk about tunnels, and we'll talk about Atlantis and Lemuria, because, there's certain groups within the Draco star beings that have created tunnels. They created tunnels between Atlantis and between Lemuria and Atlantis. And so this is part of the Orion group, and these humans got to understand that they were tunneling and interfering with the crystalline matrix within the Earth's core center, and trying to stop this. But this is part of what caused one of the first major inundations and interference of the crystalline grids. Now, a lot of that is rising again. There is something that's called the Lemurian Mother Spring, and I've worked in this with this in capacity in Hawaii and here in Australia and on Bali. And the Lemurian Mother Spring is working with the aquifers in under the oceans. And so a lot of the scuba diving that I do is to go in and to work with the fishes where the spring water is coming out in, and you can see it very clearly when the spring water, the sweet water mixes and merges with the salt water. It creates a pattern in the water, and then you bring down the sky water and you work with the principle of 3 to pull it out of duality. A lot of these portals have been realigned. A lot of the work I did was to go and work with some of the warped apertures of these that we're trying to open up again. But, I give the analogy of when you screw the jar on a lid, but you don't screw it on correctly. And so the threads aren't lining up properly. So a lot of the work that I did with learning to scuba, and, that was a big one for me because I love the ocean. I love swimming, but I couldn't put my head underwater to swim. It was all backstroke and breaststroke. So to do that was, I had to really integrate my catastrophobia and to be in that vortex, and a lot of it is I had to use the regulator to purge because there was a lot of vomiting going on because, the level of vertigo when you're working with that sort of, malalignment is quite intensified. And so, yeah, a lot of the work was working with these Lemurian mothers, the Lemurian Mother Spring, and where through the aquifers they come up in the ocean. And a lot of that is what I've mentioned before is the A grid, which is, or the primary grid, which sunk into the planet. A lot of the grids we're working on the surface Earth are B grids, the secondary grids, and we had to work on those for now. But now, our silicate matrix is really firing up that we are, we're working with that cellular memory again on the surface of the Earth and connecting it in. When I spoke earlier about that ocean in the center of our planet that regulates all the surface oceans, this is what I'm talking about with the primary grids. So, yeah. And we have a lot of help. We have a lot of help from our stellar brethren, but we also have a lot of help from our dimensional facets of self who are simultaneously working within these groups. And it's a mixed bag. When we talk about Orion and Draco and good guys, bad guys, it's not really like that because even within Syrian groups, even within Pleiadian groups, the Pleiadian renegades work a lot with Anunnaki and Draco groups. It is a mixed bag because it's not just on Earth that we have free will. So, we have to understand, we have to understand that this is still subtle material and therefore just more trickier to detect. It's more subtle ways to detect, which is what I would call true self integrating on level 6. So there are different levels of our being that the true self can work with within these subtle material realms to pull it all together. So I hope that has been useful or to help us integrate a little bit more of what's going on and who we are and what we hold, not just here for the Earth in alchemizing and anchoring on the Earth, but also to really get to know and to work with ourselves in our full capacities now. which is
integrating and alchemizing are our key words. You'll hear a lot of people say pick a side, and I understand also what they are saying. But of course, as soon as we pick a side, we create separation. So it's always about integration, alchemization, because we are just that one stream of consciousness. And from the highest perspective, we are all the roles. We are the demons. We are the angels. We are all of it, because we can't be anything else from that, monadic principle. So just a great question has come in. If you're happy to have a look at this, Raeline, before we go. So from Angel, and I can see her. Her profile pic is Uluru, so we love it all so far. Where does Raeline see the draconian measures going over the next 12 months? Original elder Auntie Minnie. Oh, we love Auntie Minnie. We've worked with her as well. Recently said that she felt the electrical grid was going to go out for about 9 months. So any intel on that one, Raeline?
Well, it's interesting that 9 months is used, because this is any mammalian makeup, any mammals that we know with humans, 9 months gestation period, so it's a birthing process. And when we say it's going to go out, it's like these grids, when we say it was all shut down, the way that I was working with these portals in under the ocean is nothing ever shuts down. And this is why I talk about the aperture. It works to a level where the aperture can still be fed from its starry source. But in order to reboot everything and to rework with the overriding, or the overriding of the overwriting, I was having this conversation with my partner the other day when we talk about all these overwrites that have occurred, over the grids, over the timelines, over the portals. It's still there. It's still there. The original, what I call beyond blueprint, because if you're working off a blueprint, you're working off something that is a piece of paper or a copy of an energetic, or what I call the originator gates, or the original source code that really when you start to write over the top of things, if you use whiteout or something, or you get an eraser and you rub out what you've written in pencil, there's still an imprint there. There's still an imprint. So when we talk about these electric grids are going to go out for 9 months, we're talking about the changing over of this heavily overridden timelines, so that what has been originally written there, what I call the Earth Core oracles, or what we call the living libraries of Gaia, the originator information coming through the originator gates when this Earth Star was inaugurated. That's what we talk about here. And yes, it is a birthing process, because we are the ones, the electrical grid isn't going out. We are being rebooted to work with that in its original capacity. And so all the overwrites that have occurred, macro, micro, planetary, personally, are going through a big clear out.
Isn't that exciting?
All the overwrites. So that's how I perceive it. That's the way I'm perceiving. I'm not having your experience of that reality. People aren't having mine, but that is how I am feeling to answer that question in the moment.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Raeline, because it really is all about our perception of what's happening here, and we're in command of that. Only we are in command of that.
Yeah. And you keep choosing your optimal timeline, and know that nobody, no one, doesn't matter who they are, is having your experience of you.
That's right. What keeps coming through, and I'm not sure why this is coming through, but I'll speak to it because I know you're in Melbourne, and I keep seeing Draco Dan. And the reason we call him Draco Dan is because it gives him a character. So we don't actually have to make him wrong, even though he may make our skin crawl and we may think he's a slimy, swamp creature. But he's just playing his role. And honestly, lately I've been thanking the deep state and the cabal and all of these rogue stellar characters, because without them I wouldn't be who I am today. I have had such a goal activation in recent times that I know without them I wouldn't have risen to this point within my consciousness. So they have created me, and for that I bless them and I thank them. What's interesting, and if we can just finish on this, Raeline, because it's a few people have asked me lately, because of the quantum field, do we send these characters love, these characters that have gone rogue or evil, for want of a better term? Do we send them love? Now, my feeling is that no, we don't send them love. We send love to the unintegrated parts of ourselves that are represented by them. So I'd love you, just as we close off, just to speak to that.
Yeah, well, at the moment, it's really important that we bear witness. That we bear witness, and we're unaffected if we bear witness. Just remain the observer. Remain the observer. Because as soon as you're triggered, as soon as you got that, bang, you're back on the roller coaster ride again. Now, I'm not saying that we're not triggered. And I'm not saying also that the triggers don't have amazing capacity to catapult us as well. But to bear witness is an incredible thing. To be in it but not of it. Because we, as I said, this is the illusory play. This reality is not real. This is the illusory play. So to the degree that we acknowledge it is to the degree that we are not entering into the true new earth. So it is everybody's capacity to look at, to the degree of what's going on within and around them, and to really be fully accountable that our reactions are our contributions. And when we react, we are sidetracked. When we are triggered and we're pulled into reaction, we are sidetracked from responding to the Earth Mother's call. And she's calling us. She's calling us to get on board. Yeah. It's simple. It's simple for the simple of heart, complicated for the crooked. So in every capacity, we have to check ourselves and observe ourselves, observing ourselves. Step back and then step back again, from the level of, as I say, true self, higher self, self-realized soul, self-realized being. And this is, it's something that this is where we can exercise our right to be here. This is how, in what capacity we can exercise our right, and to know that, being sovereign is nothing to fight for. If you're fighting for sovereignty, then you didn't get it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
It's simple as that.
It's in the claiming of it. Yeah,
it's simple for the simple of heart, and we have to get back to, organic, simple life. Otherwise, we're taken on a merry chase all around the universe. Beautiful.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, beautiful Raeline, for your incredible wisdom and your golden key codes, and for giving us these activations in our cellular DNA so that we can remember who we are and keep the simplicity, as you say, because it's just a grand adventure. And the illusory play, we have to remember those words that you've so eloquently said. It's a realm of dress-ups, and let's not take it too seriously.
Yes, serious,
let's be
not serious.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
You know, just to reiterate that nothing is set in stone. You know, destiny fate is a really interesting thing. So when we talk about timelines and 9 months and all the rest of it, you know, I'm not talking about it in clocks and calendars. I'm talking in a birthing gestation process. And if we hold this, that we are, you know, we can change the awareness of time in the blink of an eye. And as eternal light beings, we are the masters of time. So, yeah, we're living in interesting times. And, you know, I wouldn't be anywhere else right now. You know, we are perfectly situated where we are for what's occurring. And, you know, this isn't just a planetary thing. You know, this is a galactic thing that's going on. You know, this is exopolitical. Where we're at now is we're in, you know, we're in the thick of this playing out at an exopolitical, exobiological level.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. So, but we're much more than that.
Let's remember that when we're going, why me? And our collective staff are saying, why not me?
You know, as I said, these realms are still subtle material, and we are not subtle material. We are spiritual beings. And we have been playing in the subtle materials realms for so long, not just on Earth, and we've fallen into a state of amnesia. So the level of amnesia and the level of subtlety that this all plays out on is giving us, we're expanding our apertures now. We're looking at spherical consciousness to see where this subtle play and this illusory play, how it plays out in more harder to detect ways. And if that's happening, then you're graduating.
Yeah.
You're graduating the Earth School.
Wow. Magical times. Darling, thank you so much.
Now, sorry, I would just like to say that I feel during this equinox that there's going to be a really huge changing of the guards, okay? And watch this space with the who's who in the cosmic zoo. So really anchor in at this time. Know that the equinox is all about extreme polarities, okay? And a grand opportunity, golden opportunity to integrate our dark and light at this time.
Wow, what a lovely pearl to receive just at the end of this magical conversation. Thank you to everyone who's been here on the live show and all the beautiful comments that have been coming in. And we will have Raeline back when the time is perfect as it was today. So thank you again, beautiful Lemurian goddess.
Everyone for joining us, everyone. Thank you so, so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn. Bye.
Mwah.